All right, welcome back to Open Line. We are here on the half hour. I want to remind you our guest tonight is State Senator Heidi Campbell, joining us ahead of this next legislative session, which starts in January. So a lot of work will be going on Capitol Hill. Work for you. So if you have questions, if you have concerns, go ahead and give us a call now. 615-737-PLUS is the number to call. We've had great questions. John is actually back on the line. John, go ahead.
Thanks. You know, I didn't hear anything about referendum. Like I said before, the referendum process would bypass the legislature and allow the citizens to go ahead and get what they wanted. Okay, so that's what I was asking you to address. Would you be willing to support a referendum process?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I should have been clearer. What I was saying was to get a referendum on the ballot, we'd have to have the support of our colleagues, and I don't think there would be the support for that. So that was my point.
Yeah, you have to have everybody, and you don't think we're going to get there.
Yeah, I can't individually decide that I want a referendum.
You don't have that magic wand?
I don't.
That'd be nice if you did, right?
It would be.
Everybody wants one of those. I do want to talk to you about one of the priorities that we know the supermajority is already focused on and already moving on, and it surrounds the transgender issue and what is happening or was happening here in our state, particularly with the Vanderbilt Clinic.
Right.
Those surgeries happening. How are Dems reacting to this?
So, you know, I think it's important to understand that there is not some cabal of people out there that are trying to make people trans, and the Vanderbilt, program is really about helping children who are dealing with, very, very complicated and difficult issues. And over the course of 5 years, there were 5 children, all over the age of 16, who had some kind of surgery. So this is not an issue that's pressing. It's not, 5 people is certainly not a 5-alarm fire, especially over the course of 5 years. So I think, while this issue might be very politically advantageous, it's not an issue that that is as much of an emergency as it's framed to be, especially when we have affordability issues and infrastructure issues. And I think, if we stop paying attention to social media and all of the disinformation that's out there about this, that we will realize that what it is a distraction from getting the work done that we really need to do to help Tennesseans.
I want to move on then. Let's talk about education. As a mom of 2 students who are young and in elementary school, I have heard it from a principal who said, we can't get people, and if you can read, you can be a teacher right now, because that's how short we are.
Right.
And I'm not sure any of that is good, actually, to tell you the truth, that we're lowering our standards, for teachers.
Right.
But yet we can't have empty classrooms. We have to educate our children.
Right.
And again, we're talking a money issue and other issues as well. It's been a hard couple of years in that profession.
It really has, and I have to say, our teachers have borne the brunt of it, that makes me sad, because teachers are some of the most amazing people there are, and librarians too. Yep. We've really been hard on them. So, the Tennessee Investment in Students Act was a huge change in the way that we're approaching education, and is really inevitably about trying to make sure that we privatize our education system and get taxpayer funding to be going into the pockets of private charter school funders from out of state. And they tend to be they tend to have a political agenda as well, like Hillsdale.
Right.
And so unfortunately, the root issue with the BEP, the formula that we had before, it continues to be a problem. Even though funding has been increased, it's not nearly enough to fully fund our schools. So, counselors and instructors and all kinds of positions remain unfilled. And yes, we have a teacher shortage, and it's understandable because we aren't paying our teachers a living wage. And on top of that, teachers are being abused because of all of the rhetoric and all of the stuff that's going on in social media. And so I think it's a really punishing job, and I think a lot of teachers don't want to do it. So I think that fundamentally we're going to have to really work outside of the realm of this legislation as a community to do everything that we can to support our schools, because that's really the only option at this point, because of this legislation and because of the plan on the state level.
It seems like the last couple of sessions have really been focused on getting teachers some more money. I mean, we're not talking substantial, nobody got a windfall, but more money. There were several races. Redefining or reorganizing the BEP. Do you think we're going to see much on education in this next session?
We'll always see stuff on education, as far as, making progress in terms of, getting more funding to teachers and actually solving problems. I don't think that's probably going to happen because, in the final analysis, that would come down to making sure that there's more funding there, and that does not look like it's likely to happen. I think that the whole modus operandi of this particular plan is to make sure that the finances are being switched to the private sector.
One thing that Governor Lee says often is that we are prepared for a rainy day. We do have a very healthy reserve fund, as you mentioned, and it looks like we may be on the brink of a recession. So does that mean it's going to be harder to get money where it needs to go, like DCS, like education, these sorts of things?
Right. No, I mean, but yes, and we have a rainy day. So we are in the midst of a rainy day because we have children dying and sleeping on office floors and living in hospitals. We are in the midst of a rainy day because we have teachers quitting, and because we have people who can't afford to live in our cities. So this would be a good time to make sure that some of that funding is getting to programs that can help people. And that's a strategic thing too. It's making sure that that you're not missing out on opportunity costs. I mean, let's just think, for example, in our hospital situation where we have a kid who's living in a hospital for 270 days.
And doesn't need to be there.
How much do you think that costs?
Millions.
I mean, it's
Millions.
just ridiculous. So there are all kinds of externalities that occur because of these decisions that are costing us a lot of money. So it's not just about what's moral and what's right. It's also about what's economically wise.
Right.
So,
I know you have your eyes on a few other things heading into the legislative session. What else do you have on your plate?
Well, the environment is my most important issue because if we don't have a habitable planet, the rest of it's irrelevant. So I'm looking at a bill to create a tax-free weekend for sustainable goods. So that will coincide with Earth Day. Hoping that that can help us with messaging. I'm looking at some stuff outside of the legislature in terms of, I was able to save 20,000 acres of hardwood forest with my colleagues last year by, making sure that we were messaging using the Fourth Estate, thanks to you guys, and messaging things and putting pressure on people. So we're going to be doing that. There's a property that Monsanto used to own down in Columbia, outside of Columbia, that could threaten their water source, the Duck River, the most biodiverse river in the country.
We've done a lot of reporting on that.
Yeah. So we're looking at that. So those sorts of issues are very important to me. But we're also looking at, some healthcare bills, continuous glucose monitors to be adopted by TennCare as part of the pharmacy formulary, and then looking at, some local issues, like a bill that would prohibit local governments from mandating that a bill that does prohibit local mandates from employers who do business with the local government or within the boundaries to maintain certain sick and family leave policies like paid family leave and that kind of thing. And just, also, of course, looking at the bills that are coming down the pike and running defense or supporting. There are some bills that I'll certainly be supporting.
And running defense is probably, as a Democrat, the biggest thing that you do, right? Is that
Right.
fair to say?
Yeah, there's a lot of aggression towards Nashville in particular, and taking away local control.
Yeah.
Happened a great deal during the pandemic, and so I feel like, and that was part of why I ran for Congress. I felt like we need to support Nashville and defend our city.
You mentioned infrastructure dollars. Actually, you know what? We're getting close to break time. We better take another break, and then
Okay.
because that's a good conversation we need to have. So let's sneak in another break. We'll come right back. Stay with us.